Hello and welcome to a Patreon exclusive episode of Allegedly Astrology. Each episode we break down the astrology that happened during some of the biggest scandals and events in history.
And before we get into our episode, we need to welcome our newest patrons. So welcome Katie, Cassandra, Amelia, LMC, and Gigi.
Woo! Welcome new patrons. We'd love to see it. Dana, what are we discussing on this Patreon exclusive episode today?
Today we're talking about Dolly Parton, and this was a request from Danielle.
Shout out to Danielle. Make sure you guys hit us up in the DMs on Patreon to let us know what you want to hear about. We love hearing from you guys. But Dolly Parton is obviously an absolute icon. She's an American singer, songwriter, actress, philanthropist, businesswoman, known primarily for her career in country music that spanned over 50 years. She sold over 100 million records worldwide, is one of the best-selling female artists of all time, has composed over 3,000 songs, is in several music Hall of Fames, has not one but 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That's kind of crazy. I didn't know people could get 2 stars. She's won tons of awards. She literally has her own theme park, and she is Miley Cyrus's godmother. Casual.
Can I give a spoiler alert? So she has her midheaven in Gemini, and so that's like having 2 stars on the Hollywood.
Oh.
What's it called?
Wow. That is interesting.
I love that.
So let's learn a little bit more about her life and her astrology.
So Dolly Rebecca Parton was born in a one-room cabin on the banks of the Little Pigeon River in Pittman Center, Tennessee, which is both cute and sad to me. So she's the 4th of 12 children born to Avi Lee Caroline and Robert Lee Parton Sr. Her family went to church and attended regularly, and she described her family as being, pretty hard off. She said dirt poor in her words. So what's her big 3?
Dolly Parton was born on January 19th, 1946 at 8:25 p.m. in Sevierville. How do you say that, Elise? We'll just say Sevierville, Tennessee.
I think it's something like that.
Yeah, I doubt it's French.
I doubt they pronounce it the French way.
Sevierville. And she's a Capricorn sun, a Virgo moon, and a Virgo rising. So she's our earth queen. Very much being born on a dirt floor and making something of herself, right?
That.
Wow, literally.
So what do we know? Capricorn suns are responsible, strategic, hardworking, goal-oriented, and determined. And she has her sun in her natal 5th house. So she's creative. She needs to be herself and individuate herself in some capacity. And her natal sun is ruled by Saturn, which is in detriment in Cancer opposite her natal sun. So having the opposition and having a natal Saturn in detriment brings like awareness. There's an awareness of others, and it's omnipresent in her life. And maybe she was bullied by her peers. That's possible with having Saturn in the 11th. We'll get into more of that later. She's also maybe the perennial underdog in a way, but also, strengthened by this. She has a Virgo moon, so she needs order in her life. She might have like nervous energy if she's unable to organize or be of service. I always call it the Pilates moon, but I also thought that it's kind of like the Snow White moon, right? She loved animals and like didn't have human friends.
What?
Just sort of a really a kindness.
We're talking about Snow White, not Dolly. We cannot confirm that Dolly had no human friends.
No, I didn't mean that. I just meant that I'm sure she likes animals. She just seems like someone who likes animals.
Yes, she does have that energy.
And her Virgo moon's in her natal 1st house, so she maybe wears her emotion on her sleeves, or maybe she's unable to conceal emotions. But in Virgo, this could maybe be less dramatic, not so much dramatic displays of emotion, maybe more anxiety or distress if she's unable to solve problems or, needs a meal, since the moon is also eating. And this could factor largely into her Virgo moon, since it's ruled by her Mercury in Capricorn, which also really needs to solve problems. And she's a Virgo rising, so it's also ruled by Mercury in Capricorn. She has a way with words. She's hardworking, constantly in motion, or thinking about what can be done next or what she'll do tomorrow, what needs to be done. And also she's able to concretize her ideas and materialize them. And so another interesting part of her chart is that she has Mars exactly conjunct Cancer. She has Mars exactly conjunct Saturn in Cancer. And so this is interesting. So Mars and Saturn are the 2 malefics. The planets correlated with extreme circumstances, events, change, and discomfort, negative events, things people fear. Both are debilitated in Cancer. So both of her malefics are debilitated. Mars wants to fight and Cancer needs peace. Saturn wants to build and Saturn wants to build walls, boundaries, and Cancer needs that connection. Also, both are retrograde. So Saturn is retrograde for 4.5 months of the year, so this is not uncommon to have Saturn retrograde in your birth chart. But Mars is the rarest retrograde of all the planets, and it only occurs every 2 years. So having Mars retrograde in your birth chart is rare. Also, retrograde planets in the birth chart can internalize events related to the nature of the retrograde planet. And debilitated planets learn over time and through hardship or difficulty how to express themselves in their own way, hopefully. And so this, I feel, sets her apart, right? And she has Uranus conjunct the midheaven in Gemini, so I feel like this is sort of her career or reputation for being a creative genius. Well, just because Uranus speaks so much to genius and Gemini is about ideas, so I feel like she has just an intellectual twist.
One thing that I found out just now is that she does love animals, and she launched a dog apparel line last year called Doggy Parton.
Oh my God.
And she has a pet cemetery on her property where they bury all of their dead dogs.
Wow. Dana. How did you know? But I do love that she's so Capricorn. Bless up.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I was very surprised to see this chart of her, because I don't think of earth signs as necessarily being the most creative necessarily. So I think it's just interesting. But I do like what Dana said about her Uranus being conjunct her midheaven in Gemini, which is sort of where she gets that creative genius, which of course Dana would say she gets her creative genius from her Gemini.
Well, but it's ruled by her Mercury in Capricorn. She's able to she has real ideas, which is very Mercury in Capricorn, and then they get projected through this, Gemini sort of enigmatic or, interesting type of presence. I also think it's interesting that her midheaven's in Gemini because she's written songs for other people, right? So
that's very true.
So I just think there are different, but I think Capricorn often gets underappreciated for their creative abilities.
Hell yeah.
That's true.
Look at me.
She's getting paper. She has awards for being creative. Both Dolly and Sarah.
Both of us.
So Dolly began performing in church at age 6, and then at age 7 she started playing a homemade guitar. Oh my God, so cute. It's so sad. And when she was 8, her uncle bought her first real guitar, and she began singing on local radio and television programs.
And people were into it. So at 13 she recorded her first single and even appeared at the Grand Ole Opry, which honestly is a very big deal. It's known as the home of country music, and they have a weekly live music radio performance. So very big exposure.
And eventually Dolly graduated from high school and moved to Nashville, where she became a successful songwriter and wrote several singles that charted. But she really wanted to be a singer herself.
So she gets signed to a record company, and initially they made her a bubblegum pop singer, and she released a string of singles that were poppy, but none of them really did well. And she was, can I please just sing country?
But the record company didn't want her to sing country music because they thought her voice was too high and just not a good fit for country music. However, that changed after she wrote a song that was recorded by another country singer, of course. And Dolly sang harmony on the track, and the song went to number 6 on the country charts. So the record company was like, okay, fine, we guess you can be a country singer.
So she gets to be a country singer. She's in Nashville, and she meets her famously private husband, Carl Thomas Dean. He actually just yelled at her from a car, and she was like, I'm into this. And then they hung out a bunch on like the front porch of her house. And eventually they got married and have been together for over 50 years.
Love that for her. Yeah, Dean is a retired owner of an asphalt road paving business. He's always stayed away from publicity. He really never goes with Dolly to any events. He's been so out of the public eye that people even thought that he didn't exist and that their whole relationship might have been made up.
But Dean is very much real. He just prefers to live in their home in Tennessee while Dolly performs and tours alone. And despite the distance, Dolly says Dean is the romantic and says their marriage is strong. Cute.
Yes, and the couple never had any kids, but they don't seem to have any regrets about that. They even renewed their vows in honor of their 50th wedding anniversary. So these two are definitely in it for the long haul. So Dana, let's look at their bi-wheel.
Okay, Carl Thomas Dean was born on July 20th, 1942 in Nashville, Tennessee. And there's a lot going on here. So Carl's North Node is conjunct Dolly's moon in Virgo.
Do we have Carl's big three?
Yes. Well, no, we don't have his rising, but we do have Carl's sun, which is in Cancer, and his
I love a Cancer man.
moon, which is in Libra.
Oh, nice.
So he's a very... This is actually the reverse of A$AP Rocky, who's known to be very supportive to Rihanna. If anyone else is obsessed with both of them, like me, or was on Twitter on the day when the video of him recording her at the Super Bowl was posted.
Oh, yeah.
Very supportive, very loving, here for, in it to win it. So his North Node is conjunct her moon in Virgo. And actually, before I say that, they have a solar opposition. So this is interesting. I like solar oppositions. I like oppositions in synastry since the 7th house is opposite the 1st house, and that's where partnerships exist. So the solar opposition, especially in Capricorn and Cancer, they can be business-minded. They don't necessarily have to be competitive with each other, right? Like, it sounds like he's fully, on board with her business, but also not trying to compete. So I think that's pretty cute. Also, he has Jupiter and Mercury in Cancer, so they have Mercury opposite too. And then with Jupiter there, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, so this adds a lot to both the sun and his Mercury. It's going to make him gracious and really caring, committed. But yeah, back to Carl's North Node being conjunct her moon in Virgo. So the moon is what we need to feel safe and secure, and the North Node is like a magnet that pulls us in. So the emotional bond is palpable here, and especially reliable in Virgo. Perhaps dry at times, but she was born on a dirt floor, or she was dirt poor. She wasn't born on a dirt floor. Maybe she was. Anyway. And with his North Node at the same sign as her rising, they feel drawn to each other. Whenever someone's nodes are in our 1st and 7th houses, there's gravity to the relationship. So it's pretty tight. Carl's Venus is conjunct Dolly's North Node in Gemini. Holler. So both of their nodes are activated in this relationship. We love that. Nodal synastry has gravity and meaning because the nodes are eclipse points, and eclipses are events that they change us and our circumstances. So those relationships have a similar effect. With her North Node conjunct his Venus, she feels drawn to his energy and attracted to him while he feels really valued and loved by her, which is especially important for people with Cancer placements. Carl's moon in Libra is conjunct her Chiron and Jupiter, and the moon in Libra needs emotional harmony, or will sacrifice themselves to maintain emotional harmony in relationships, and so just keeping a balance. Chiron in Libra is the primordial wound around relationships, and in her 2nd house, it's going to be about having enough, which is kind of, more about her than this relationship. But maybe his moon being the moon relating to abundance or, what you need, he brings that sort of to her. Whatever she maybe was missing, being, I don't even know what number of 12, I forgot already. But, having so many children or growing up with so many siblings, she can feel valued in this relationship. Also, her Jupiter in Libra is generous and loving. I love Jupiter in Libra. I feel like they are just really kind and accommodating and also really have a discernible style, which she clearly does. And then when someone's Jupiter is conjunct our moon, we feel more inclined to trust them. Jupiter is generosity and truth, and the moon and Jupiter both really relate to trust. And in Libra, that's great for partnerships. In her 2nd house, that's going to really fortify her self-esteem.
Cuties being cuties. So Dolly releases her debut album, Hello, I'm Dolly, and it does really well. So well that she catches the eye of country music musician Porter Wagoner.
And Porter Wagoner had a weekly syndicated TV show called The Porter Wagoner Show, as all of those TV shows were called back then. And he offered Dolly a regular spot on it. And Dolly said yes because he offered her a good deal of money and she thought it would be a good opportunity to get recognition. So this was a very, very big moment in her career. So what was going on when Dolly made her debut on The Porter Wagoner Show?
This was September 5th, 1967, and Dolly was in a 9th house Taurus Venus year. The 9th house relates to idols and publishing, and Taurus is the voice, so her voice is being published on, a mass scale. And this is also, I guess, the beginning of her becoming an idol, right?
Hell yeah.
And her progressed moon was in Gemini, and it was conjunct her natal midheaven and Uranus. Okay, so the progressed moon changes signs every 2 to 2.5 years, and whatever sign and house it's in indicates an area of focus and development in our lives for that period. And Dolly's progressed moon transiting her 10th house and midheaven places the focus on her career and fame. The 10th house relates to fame and honors. And with Uranus, maybe she felt surprised by these events. Or also Uranus just sort of has this way of it is surprising, but also I mean, Neptune and Uranus both really relate to fame, and so does Pluto in terms of power, but I digress. Venus retrograde, so Venus, her Time Lord, was retrograde in Virgo and conjunct her natal moon. So Venus was her Time Lord. This is an extra significant retrograde for her. Venus retrograded from Virgo into Leo in 1967 and spent a total of 101 days in Virgo. And Venus usually spends 23 days in each sign, so that's, significant. So with her Time Lord Venus, the planet of love, music, attraction, and art, getting such an extended stay in her first house, she's in the spotlight, she's getting opportunities. People are attracted to her. Venus attracts people to you. And with Venus retrograde on her moon, she may have felt anxious maybe about her appearance. This is sort of speculation, of course, I don't know. Or just maybe she was simply driven to change her appearance. I'm not sure if that occurred. Venus is in fall in Virgo, and because Virgo is perfection and Venus, is love. So this placement can feel like it needs to earn love. So maybe she felt like, I'm earning love, but also Venus retrograde in Virgo can turn this idea on its head. So maybe she was really feeling, like she's coming into her own. I'm enough. She's doing what she always wanted to do and what she's clearly meant to do with her, stellium and Capricorn in her fifth house.
It's interesting you brought up that she felt like she needed to earn love before she joined the show. Another woman had the role that she had. Her name was like Norma Jean, I think. And when Norma Jean left the show and Dolly came on, the audience really didn't like Dolly for a while until eventually they liked her. And they were like, actually, we love you now.
She's like, I'm here to stay. I wonder if they started to like her once Venus was direct and had re-entered Virgo. That would be interesting. Also, the South Node was in Libra, conjunct her natal Jupiter and in her second house. So this was the beginning of her earning money and maybe sort of like draining since the South Node is a drain, transiting her natal Libra stellium with Jupiter, outer planet stellium, Jupiter, Chiron, and Neptune. It's allowing her to maybe really get in touch with her own creativity with Neptune there, her own inner generosity with Jupiter there, and maybe all of her insecurities, which the second house can often relate to, maybe are falling by the wayside, which also insecurities tend to relate to being financially stable or what's it called? Solvent. So
I think she and she's definitely someone who was really interested in a solo career. She didn't want her fame to be tied to somebody else. But I think the money and the opportunity sort of forced her hand into being like, I have to take this opportunity.
Sure. Interesting. Also, so there's a Virgo stellium transiting her first house. It includes the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Uranus, and Pluto. So the Sun is the spotlight, the Moon is manifestation, like manifesting something on Earth, right? It's manifesting her star value on Earth. The Moon translates aspects that are occurring in the sky to material reality. It pulls the tides, right? Okay. So Mercury is connection and communication. Uranus is maybe changes to her perspective, her appearance, her whole being, really, with being projected into a famous role. And Pluto is power and intrigue. So all these are transiting her first house. And it's a new moon in Virgo on her ascendant.
Chic. Yeah, very just showing this is her time to be in the spotlight and get some cash. So Dolly and Porter actually have very great on-screen chemistry, and fans, though they were a little iffy about Dolly at the beginning, soon were obsessed with her and Porter, and the show's popularity grew and became the #1 syndicated show in America.
And Porter convinced his label, RCA Victor, to sign Dolly. And RCA released her first single as a duet with Porter, and it hit the country chart top 10. And after that, the duo has a 6-year streak of top 10 singles.
Yes, they were crushing it. They were named Vocal Group of the Year by the Country Music Association. But there were 2 problems with this. 1, Dolly's solo singles were ignored. And 2, Porter was kind of a dick to her.
But they had heated arguments. There was an obvious power struggle between them. Dolly had a lot of ideas, but ultimately it was Porter who had the say. They were a beloved duo with chemistry, but they also had some serious issues. So what is their bi-wheel like?
Porter was born on August 12th, 1927 in West Plains, Missouri.
Oh shit, he's old.
He's so old that when I put the year into my astrology software, I had to put 19 first. Usually I could just put the last 2 digits. But
oh my God.
Anyway, I was like, oh, this dude's old. Their nodes are conjunct in Gemini and Sagittarius. Both of them have Gemini in Dolly's north node is at 29 degrees Gemini. Porter's at 26. So this means that Dolly was born during Porter's first nodal return. And as stated before, the nodes are hugely significant in synastry. They provide gravity and significance to relationships. There's feelings of fatedness. And it's interesting that they both have the north node in Gemini, and it's in Dolly's midheaven and 10th house because they were a duo. So they were destined to be a duo, and maybe they were destined to leave. And then Porter's Mars and Venus are in Dolly's first house. So Mars is conjunct Dolly's ascendant. I think he probably maybe, was majorly attracted to her. But also Mars and Venus, this is a good for being, creative together. Venus also obviously relates to creativity. Also, maybe her vibe, like he just really felt like he wanted to pursue it, for his own image or, because he knew they would be a good duo. Porter's Pluto is conjunct Dolly's Saturn and Mars in her natal 11th house in Cancer. And so the 11th house's audiences and his influence in putting her on his show really opened her up to a wider audience. With his Pluto conjunct her natal Saturn and Mars, there could have been, once again, I feel like maybe there was like some sort of intense sexual attraction, maybe just some sort of tension. But also maybe she had some sort of reverence for Porter's power. But it's really a tricky aspect because Pluto can want to overpower the Saturn and Mars person, especially since her placements are both debilitated in Cancer. So maybe he was even jealous of her because Pluto often has to do with jealousy because maybe she was beloved and he was like, a talented accessory. But also the Saturn or Mars person can maybe feel either in awe or afraid of the Pluto person. Sometimes both. Maybe she was just downward annoyed by him. Who knows? Porter's Saturn is in Sagittarius and it's tightly square her moon. So Moon-Saturn synastry can be tough, especially with the square. So on the positive side, Porter wants to guide Dolly and, maybe help her out. Maybe that's what he thinks with his Saturn and Sagittarius being like really wanting to teach and rein things in. He could also maybe make the world smaller for her. You can only believe these certain things or, what is possible for them or her. So on the positive side, right, he wants to guide her and help her. But on the negative side, he could be brash or they could really fight about creative differences and he can maybe think he knows better, and that's just sort of a real area of tension, I think. I mean, for sure.
I think all those things you said, like for everything we know about them, make sense. Like they did have a really good chemistry that clearly comes from somewhere, and we know he was kind of very controlling and argumentative and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, he's almost 20 years older than her, so he was always going to be like, oh, well, I know better than you. You're just a 20-something-year-old woman. I'm the industry veteran, but he would never have been as famous as he got without her either.
Especially like 1967.
And he knows it.
Be like, Toots, you're no one without me. And she's like, I literally write these songs. He also, like, he has Jupiter conjunct Uranus exactly in Aries in her 8th house. So this could feel like, so the 8th house is where we're given things and sometimes where we share things. So it could, right, Jupiter is about generosity, Uranus is a surprise. So she's maybe surprised by what she gains by being with him, but also that could, breed resentment or whatever over time. Or she just leaves because it's not a marriage.
Yeah. So, though people were ignoring her singles, Dolly was no scrub. She was a prolific songwriter and can play many instruments despite not knowing sheet music. So she kept getting out there, hustling, and eventually she comes out with a solo single called Jolene, which becomes a huge hit.
Fun fact, my mom and dad's couple name is Jolene.
What do you... Oh,
Joe and Arlene.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
We call them Jolene.
That's so
my
funny.
siblings and I do.
Cute.
That's so cute.
But Dolly always wanted a solo career, like we mentioned, and with the success of Jolene, she thought it was time to make some moves. So she decided to leave Porter's show after 7 years, and their last duet concert was in April of 1974.
Though she had left the show, Porter continued to help produce her records, and they continued to release duet albums. And she even wrote the song Made Famous by Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You, about her professional break from Porter.
Honestly, I can't believe that song is about a professional end relationship because it's so deeply heartfelt. But, they did have a connection.
That's a real Capricorn for you. She's like...
yeah, oh my God, so true. A professional relationship means so much to her.
But I mean, they do have a lot of aspects that are, they definitely, like, not saying they had a relationship in any way, but they definitely have a lot of attraction. Her Pluto is basically opposite his moon, like, also that is pretty...
Yeah, and even just with the nodal conjunction, they're cut from the same, like, cloth, like from the cosmic cloth.
Cut from the same cosmic cloth.
Gross. I hate myself for saying that.
What happened? Because this was a big deal. Like, she left the show, I think it was after 7 years or something. So what happened when she split from Porter?
This was February 19th, 1974, and Dolly was in a fifth house Capricorn Saturn year. So the fifth house is about individuation, risks, creativity, her own art, and she has her natal sun, Mercury, and Venus in Capricorn, so they're all activated in this perfection year. The sun is the spotlight, Mercury is, connection, thinking, ideas, and Venus is art. Also, Venus is partnerships. So it's likely that she was able to maybe see things for what they were, connect some dots, go her own way, see a way out. She wants to individuate. That's what the fifth house is about. And she's in her nodal opposition, and actually so is Porter, of course. His was exact on this day, so that's pretty interesting. So this is being plucked off one path and thrown onto another. She didn't enter the 27 Club. She just became a solo artist. Thank God. This is also her Venus return, and Venus stationed direct on her natal Venus 6 days earlier on February 13th. So Venus was retrograde in Capricorn this year, and her natal Venus is in Capricorn. So Venus retrograde, especially in Capricorn, can really put relationships under a microscope. Maybe people stop settling, but maybe they also write a song like I Will Always Love You with the creative aspects there. Uranus was in Libra, conjunct her natal Jupiter, which rules her seventh house of one-on-one partnerships. So this is like surprising breakups. Whenever Uranus, if Uranus makes a hard transit, a conjunction, an opposition, a square, especially a conjunction, like she has to your natal seventh house ruler, something like your partnerships will be shaken up. Also, it's freedom. In Libra, it's freedom in relationships. So she's breaking free. And her Time Lord Saturn was conjunct her natal North Node in Gemini. So Saturn is, make it or break it. And when Saturn transits the North Node, things like happen that were always going to happen. So this is just something that even if she's like, I'm not sure where I'm headed, which I doubt she felt that as such a Capricorn, but maybe she did, that she just knew that it was like, it had to happen. Also, her solar return descendant was in Capricorn, which is her perfected sign. And when the solar return descendant is in the same sign as the annual perfection, it indicates a major year for relationships and contracts. So maybe this also really brought her closer together in her marriage. We'll never know because her husband's cool in private, but definitely changed up her, her one-on-one partnerships in the public eye. There's a lot going on. It's pretty interesting. Yeah. Also interesting that both of these major occurrences happened in years where Venus was retrograde in her perfected house.
Oh, very interesting indeed.
So this brings us to the late 70s through the mid 80s, where Dolly begins a high-profile crossover campaign to become more mainstream outside of country music. Unfortunately, her first crossover album didn't do so well.
During this time, her old pal Porter was really shitting on her in the press, and he even sued her for $3 million, like a real dick. He claimed she owed him money for breach of a management contract and for other results from their separation, such as like him having to cancel some concerts or something. He asked for 15% of her net income from June 1974 through June 1979, 15% of her outstanding record royalties, and 15% of the future record royalties.
What the fuck?
Oh my God. Literally so insane. And on top of that, he also claimed that even though she is the one that left the show, he was still her manager and was entitled to a percentage of her earnings. So again, crazy. It was pretty messy. There's even a Drunk History episode about their famous feud, which was eventually settled out of court.
There was definitely a lot of bad blood during this time, but eventually the two would later rekindle their friendship and she would be there on his deathbed.
Wow. That's pretty intense.
That makes so much sense for her
Nodes.
chart. She's such
Nodes activated. Yeah, she's a ride or die for sure. Literally in this case, she
Ride till die. So even though Dolly was dealing with all of this court drama, she decided to try again to make another crossover album, and this time it did pretty well. She also released the single 9 to 5 for the film of the same name and became one of the few female country singers to have #1 single on the country and pop charts simultaneously. And the single was a huge success, which brings us to Dolly's acting career.
So we know, Dolly had done variety shows, but her first feature film was with Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin in 9 to 5, and the movie highlights discrimination against women in the workplace and created awareness of the National Association of Working Women.
Hell yeah.
It had a ton of nominations for her acting, and this really opened her up to more acting roles. So what was going on when 9 to 5 premiered?
This was December 19th, 1980. And Dolly was in an 11th house Cancer moon year.
Audience, baby.
Her natal Saturn and Mars are in Cancer. Saturn is hard work. Mars is pursuing your passions. Once again, the 11th house is audience. And the premiere has the sun in Sagittarius and the moon in Gemini. So the sun is conjunct her natal south node. So I feel like this is fulfilling a lifelong wish or doing something that she's always known how to do. In some ways, it could be a comfort zone or something that she's... Because the South Node can relate to comfort zones, but it can also relate to maybe getting rid of stuff too. Maybe throughout this, she's getting rid of things that have plagued her in a certain way. And the moon was her time lord, and it's transiting her natal 10th house of career and reputation, so that tracks. Mercury was conjunct Neptune in Sagittarius on her natal South Node, so I think maybe she didn't predict the magnitude of her own success following this premiere. Or it just opened her up to all new creativity, right? Because like maybe some dormant creativity. That could also be what the South Node is. Just doing the acting stuff, which is definitely more maybe Sagittarius, although that's a hot take. She was also in her Mars opposition, so Mars was in Capricorn opposite her natal Mars in Cancer, and maybe she felt energized by this opposition. Mars is, energy and going for some things. Mars transiting her natal 5th house, where she has her natal Sun, Mercury, and Venus, is empowering her creatively, and especially since Mars is exalted in Capricorn. And the 5th house also can relate to being celebrated. So maybe she's being celebrated in a new way that's different than she's used to. The North Node is in Leo, conjunct her natal Pluto. So this is all about enhancing her power. The North Node relates to increase. Pluto is power. And it's in her natal 12th house. So maybe, unbeknownst to her. Jupiter is conjunct Saturn in Libra, and that's conjunct her natal Neptune in her 2nd house. So Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions are majorly significant in mundane astrology. They trigger new eras. And so with this conjunction occurring on her natal Neptune, the planet that's related to creativity, I feel like she's being sewn into the fabric of culture. And also with this conjunction in her natal 2nd house of income and finances, she's really making money. And her natal Jupiter is in Libra, so this is like the beginning of her Jupiter return. So things coming to her, generosity, a new perspective, new pages are turning for her. Jupiter returns are exciting. People look forward to them much more than they do to their Saturn return. But Jupiter has a 12-year cycle, so Jupiter returns can also feel like people can have maybe hesitation just because, like, even if it's so much, like, even if it's a positive change, it's change. So, acting is a change from singing. Pluto was in Libra, conjunct her natal Chiron, and Jupiter also in her 2nd house. So there are 2 Pluto activations. Pluto is power, Chiron is wounding and healing, and Jupiter is generosity and optimism. And so this underscores her becoming a mainstay in culture and getting that money. And also she was in a 10th house month, so really just sort of putting that moon to work, the moon which was in Gemini on that day. So all in all, this was a month for her career.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was.
So Dolly keeps riding that wave, and she appeared in another film called The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, which is an adaptation of the famous Broadway musical. The film was greeted with positive critical reviews and became a commercial success. It was the fourth highest grossing live action musical film of the 80s. And she also received critical acclaim and award nominations.
I mean, you can't always be batting 100. She definitely also had some flops, but she rebounded back with the film Steel Magnolias. The film was very popular with critics and audiences and grossed over $95 million inside the U.S. alone.
And she followed that up with some made-for-TV movies. And throughout the years, she's done a lot of guest appearances and voice work.
So, Dolly honestly, does not fuck around. She's very talented, both at music and acting. But she is also very known for her looks. She's known for having undergone considerable plastic surgery, and she has a 17-inch waist that is
so insane.
So tiny. And she says she maintains it by fasting 1 day a week and eating smaller portion meals throughout the day because she refuses to exercise, which I love.
God, that's honestly amazing. I wish I had any kind of self-discipline because I too hate exercising. But anyway, Dolly has repeatedly joked about her physical image and surgeries, saying it takes a lot of money to look this cheap.
I love that.
And she's especially known for her boobs, which have been mentioned in several other songs by musical artists throughout the years.
I feel like that's very Capstellium to be able to just be be self-deprecating, be able to joke about yourself, even though you are very into your looks. You are aware of how it comes off. So is there anything in her chart that would show she had, this notoriety for her looks or her body?
Yes, for sure. So once again, she has a natal Mars and Saturn conjunction in Cancer, which is boobs. Cancer is the breast. And in her 11th house.
Cancer is
boobs. Cancer is boobs. Boobies.
If you take away one thing from this episode, it's that Cancer is boobs.
Cancer is all together.
Cancer
is
boobs.
Boobs.
A Dolly Parton song, for sure. So, and this conjunction's in her 11th house of audience, so her audience knows her for that. Also, her natal sun, Venus and Mercury. So, well, especially Sun and Venus. So Venus is your aesthetic, style, and your sun is the spotlight, what you're in the spotlight for, are ruled by this Saturn in Cancer. So she's really sticking out for these boobs. Also, both her Virgo rising and Gemini midheaven are ruled by Mercury, which again is in Capricorn with these other placements. And she has her natal Jupiter in Libra, which I have noticed is a placement of many trendsetters and people who are maybe not even trendsetters, but just known for having their own style and their own look. So just sort of, and also since it's Jupiter in Libra, ingratiating yourself to people because of it, right? This Jupiter in Libra also squares her natal Sun-Saturn opposition. So, it brings people towards her, maybe as opposed to repulsing them or whatever.
Other famous people with Jupiter in Libra include Madonna, Michael Jackson, and Freddie Mercury. And I would argue that all of those people are very known for their looks.
Yeah, Home Depot.
And weird plastic surgery in two of those three cases. Another thing Dolly is known for that is not so superficial is her work with charity through her Dollywood Foundation. She does so much. We literally can't even begin to list it all here, but she really gives back and has won tons of awards for her philanthropy.
She focuses a lot on literacy because, and this made me cry, her dad couldn't read or write. Her literacy program, Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, which
that's
I love,
so cute,
mails one book per month to each enrolled child from their first birthday until they enter kindergarten. And currently, 850,000 children across the U.S., Canada, the U.K., Australia, and the Republic of Ireland receive books each month. So that's huge.
Yeah, I have cute cues.
Yeah.
And Dolly has also worked to raise money for other important causes like the American Red Cross and HIV/AIDS-related charities. She's also made efforts to preserve the bald eagle through the American Eagle Foundation Sanctuary at Dollywood. Again, back to the loving animals.
And how could we forget, during the COVID pandemic, she donated $1 million towards research at Vanderbilt University Medical Center and encouraged those who could afford it to make similar donations. And her donation funded the critical early stages of the development of the Moderna vaccine.
And there's probably so much more we don't know because she's humble AF.
Capricorn stellium again.
Capricorn stellium. So, Dana, is there anything in her chart that would indicate why she's so, or how she's so philanthropic?
Yes, for sure. So both of her malefics are debilitated in Cancer. Hers are both retrograde, which means she internalizes struggle. And this conjunction is in her 11th house, which relates to audience and also philanthropy. And it's the house of wanting the world to be better. So it makes sense that this is where she really buckles down in terms of what she believes in. And again, the malefics are debilitated in Cancer because Cancer is sentimental and Cancer cares. So she's able to sort of take all these things that have happened to her maybe, and instead of, letting them affect her, she helps people. Her midheaven, aka her reputation, is in Gemini with her North Node, which is exalted in Gemini because Gemini wants to innovate and the North Node is moving forward. So it's sort of like, let's get new ideas. Let's go forward. I had no idea that, let's make a new kind of vaccine and, all of her other things. It's also ruled by her natal Mercury in Capricorn, and Capricorn is the sign of responsibility. So it's taking responsibility, not just for yourself, but also for the things and people that you care about. And her natal Jupiter, Neptune, and Chiron are all in Libra in her second house. And Libra is a sign of sharing, and Jupiter is generosity. Chiron is wounding. Neptune is sensitivity, and maybe even guilt. And the second house is her income, her possession. So she knows what it's like to struggle and to go without, and she wants to share her wealth. She's earned it, but she doesn't, she wants it to go towards other people's, and she probably feels privileged to have done so well.
Very cute. I love that. As of late, Dolly was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I love this. She initially declined the nomination because she said that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was for people in rock music. But then somebody was like, no, it's not just people in rock music. And she was like, okay, I would accept if I was inducted. And she was chosen. So she's now in the Country Music Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Music Hall of Fame. So what was going on when she was inducted?
This was November 5th, 2022, and this was 3 days before a total lunar eclipse in Taurus on November 8th. Dolly has Taurus on her natal 9th house of idols, so this eclipse is occurring in her natal 9th house, and it cements her legacy in history. Dolly was in a 5th house Capricorn Saturn year. The 5th house is about creativity and individuation, being celebrated for who she is and what she's made. The 5th house is like where other people might celebrate you for you. And her natal sun, Mercury, and Venus are here, which makes people happy to celebrate her, right? She's Venus, and the sun's the spotlight. Venus is, love and attraction. Mercury is, communication. So she's being celebrated on a larger platform. Also a larger platform because Pluto was in Capricorn conjunct her natal Venus in her 5th house. So this is in her perfected house. It's power. It's like, once again, cementing her legacy into history. It's her sun and her Venus. She's a famous singer. And like a very famous singer. So my note for this was, I think that quote from, I think it's from Sandlot, where they say less than a god and more than a man. I feel like that's how I felt when I read this or saw this chart.
Cute.
I just want you guys to know that Dolly Parton was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Eminem.
Interesting.
They were in the same class.
Very interesting.
Wow.
So
I think he's a
Dolly
Libra
better
too, so
accept
that was
that goddamn award because she can freaking play instruments and music with sheet music.
Eminem's very talented.
I know he's talented, but I'm just saying it was shocking to me that she initially declined it because
Sure.
How do you think you don't deserve this?
That is funny. Her progressed moon was in Gemini again in her 10th house, so it's also like looking at her career, and it's closing in on her natal or her progressed North Node. So it's really a time where she's, everything she's been building towards, it's like pulling her towards it. That's another thing too. The North Node is pulling, so it's like she was pulled into this, right? It's not like she was like, someone was like, no, you can do it. She's like, oh, okay. I guess I'll let myself be inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. But yeah, this Hall of Fame induction really inspired her because in January of 2023, Dolly announced that she would release her very first rock album entitled Rockstar, and it's slated to come out in November of 2023, and it will feature collaborations with none other than Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, Elton John, Sheryl Crow, her goddaughter Miley Cyrus,
Amazing.
Lizzo, and more.
Oh my God, I love that. I'm very excited. Dolly has a lot going on in 2023, so what are your predictions for her, Dana?
Well, she's in an Aquarius 6th house Saturn year. So Saturn rules her sun, and Saturn will be transiting her 7th house. So maybe she has more, lucrative contracts coming up.
Damn.
Partnerships, right? This sort of, you just said that she has that major album, so that makes sense. They're all collaborations, right?
Yeah.
Ding, ding,
so
ding.
That's pretty cool. Ding, ding, ding.
Also, her solar return ascendant is conjunct her natal midheaven in Gemini. So induction into the Hall of Fame maybe preempted the solar return promise. That can happen sometimes. But it's also like maybe a year of being in the public, a year of legacy being talked about, sort of being celebrated for who she is, and the solar return moon was conjunct her natal south node in the 4th house. So maybe she'll release unreleased work, previously unreleased work, right?
Ooh.
Or return to older projects. Maybe she'll be in a movie. I hadn't thought of that.
Oh, that would be
That would be cool. And her progress.
I mean, they're bound to remake some of these movies she was in.
Oh, true. I'm surprised they haven't already. Especially Steel Magnolias, just because I haven't seen it, but it seemed popular. Her progress moon enters Cancer and her 11th house on July 5th, 2023. So, this could be more major philanthropy. Why can I not say that word? Especially with the South Node entering her natal 2nd house of possessions on July 17th. So maybe she'll be like, clearing house. I want to share a lot. But yeah, I really love that her natal or her solar return ascendant is conjunct her natal midheaven. So I think that we'll get to see more of her, who I don't really think about her a lot, but when I do, I feel happy.
Good. Same.
I mean, what? She's 75? 76?
You would never know.
God, hell yeah. I'm so.
All we have to do is not eat one day a week and eat very tiny meals.
And you too could have a 17-inch waist. LOL. No, we are not. We don't condone that, but we love Dolly. So thank you so much for listening and supporting us on Patreon. We appreciate you so, so much. And with that, I'm Elise.
I'm Dana.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is a Patreon exclusive episode of Allegedly Astrology.
Yes. I was waiting.
We'll always love you.
Wow. I honestly was thinking that, but
I wasn't going to do it.
I'm glad you carried it on.